Live from CNBC World Headquarters, this is On the Money.
So far, Derek, as to say that NTP, which is the possessor of this patent, is effectively extorting or blackmailing Research in Motion?
Well, I certainly would. In fact, that's a pretty wide accusation, but there was a quote coming from NTP lawyers, James Wallace, who said, as the Patent Office is reviewing the claims and actually discarding some of them one by one, deciding that there was the patents themselves were fairly obvious, the lawyer said, all we need is just one claim to shut them down, referring to NTP. So that sounds like a bit of a position where if we're going to shut you down unless you pay us.
How do you interpret that? I mean, what's the next step in that statement?
Well, for RIM, a nice solution was actually to have the settlement where they actually pay NTP a ransom of sorts, but that allows them to get on with their business. And actually, when they struck a deal earlier in the year to settle the claim for $450 million, within that week, RIM's stock price surged to a total of $1 billion with a B. So you can see that's the size of the monkey on their back. It's $1 billion monkey, this lawsuit hanging over Research in Motion.
Any indications, Peter, that the U.S. government is considering adopting the European stance and being less considerate of software patents?
No, at this point, what the government's position has been is that there's simply a lack of sufficient prior art, in other words, things that went before, to evaluate these patents. Unfortunately, there's been a series of somewhat embarrassing patents issued, the Amazon one-click patent being one, that have just pretty much consterned many of the government representatives that are in charge of issuing these patents. So there's going to be further embarrassments. I don't think the government is moving away from granting them, but they're going to be much more circumspect and a lot harder on re-examination, which is what is going on with the NTP patents.
But it sounds like the issue is, are we issuing patents on things that are obvious? It's as if you're patenting, the word OK, or the patenting the letter A on the keyboard. I see you nodding your head, Derek, and it strikes me as absurd.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Dylan. I think that's one of the things, and Peter will agree, that a patent has to be non-obvious. In fact, you just mentioned the Amazon one-click. My comparison remaining in the wireless space is we have wireless news, we have wireless lottery results, we have wireless yellow pages. Why is it that we have wireless CNBC? Why is it that email was given this specific distinction that NTP was allowed to own it? There's no patent lawsuits in any of those other fields. They're all considered obvious. Email is just another internet application like those others.
What do you say, Peter? Have we patented the obvious? Of course email is wireless. That's the nature of the system.
Yes, it was, or is now, but was it at the time the application was filed? It goes back to 1991. That's been the difficulty with these types of inventions, is how do you determine who was first in a non-obvious fashion to develop this technology? Unfortunately, given our system, a good many patentees have gotten patents that, frankly, are so broad they shouldn't have been issued.
All right, in a word to both of you, starting with you, Peter, will they turn it off or not?
At this point, I think there's a strong probability that they will shut it down, probably with a grace period if the judge is responsible. However, the court has said what its main interest here is to end this case, one way or another.
A good answer, but way more than a word. Derek, what do you say?
I'm glad you went to Peter because he's the legal expert on this, but I would say that if they do move to shut it down, I think we'll see a surprise quick settlement where RIM basically pays what it takes to keep that service running.
All right, guys, have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you very much.
Coming up next here on CNBC, On the Money.